learn more about car photography and post-processing, be sure to subscribe at the link below. And please follow me on Instagram at TomEnglandPhoto. Okay, in this video I'm going to look at this interior photo, this convertible, this Mercedes SL450. And the first thing we're going to take a look at is a couple adjustments here in Lightroom before we move over to Photoshop. And this is just a little bit with the exposure, the highlights we want to take down a bit, and the chromatic aberration, we'll just take that out before we go over into Photoshop here. So the first step here in Photoshop is I want to get rid of the background here. It's not a great background with these trees, so I'm going to replace that. So this is going quickly using the pen tool, making selections, and filling with white. And the reason I'm filling with white, it's a lot easier to use the color range to do a selection on that particular area, so we can replace it with a better sky. So quickly going through this here and making selections. These selections can be all done at once, but just making selections around some specific portions here of the window, and we're filling with white. So we're going to go through the steering wheel, little portion in here, of course the windshield, this side window, and there's a little portion up here on top because the top was down. So here is a sky I had taken, and I'm going to copy this, so Control All, and we'll paste it into this photo here, reducing the exposure so we can move it up, and we're going to select the color range after putting a black mask and a radius of 2, and use the gradient tool to pull up, and we have our sky there. We can adjust the opacity. Want this a little darker, we can increase this, and that's pretty good. We'll take it down just a bit, just a couple here, and the sky's in there, so we have a good start here already. Flatten that image, and we'll start to do some other adjustments. And the important thing here with interior photos is no matter how clean it is, there's going to be some dust and some little specks, and I'll take some time to go through and kind of clean up. There's a little bit of dust here on the Mercedes emblem that I'll use a couple tools for, really just the patch tool and the clone tool, but we're just going around, and we'll just quickly go through this and skip this, but it's taking the time to go through and clean up any blemishes that are on the interior. Okay, so with the sky here, the same sky, I'm just going to use a portion of this. So we'll just use a crop here, and we'll copy and paste this. And this is going to go in the rearview mirror at the top. You can see a reflection of the back of the car. I'm going to leave some of that in there, but I do want a little bit of this sky in there as well. So we'll move this up, have a little cloud in there. And that's good. Now to mask this out, we're going to use the pen tool, and we'll draw inside of where the review mirror is. So let's make a selection, and we'll go around here. And after we're done with this, we're just going to put a mask on it, and that'll take care of that. And then we can play around with the opacity to see what looks best. Okay, connect that, and let's make a selection, and 0.2 pixels for the feathering. And we're going to expand this just by 2 pixels, just one, actually, one will do. And we'll put a mask on that. And there we go. So with the opacity, you can put that at 100, but I'm going to take it down just a bit so we can see both the sky and some reflection of the car in the back there as well. So that takes care of the review mirror. All right, so let's flatten this. We'll go back into Lightroom. And first thing, I want to do a little bit of a crop here. I think there's too much to the left, which is not the focal point. The steering wheel and the interior is really the focal point here. And we'll increase the contrast a bit. Take these highlights down again. And maybe just a tad of warmth, 1 or 2 pixels. Okay, now the shadows, I'm going to use a little with the split toning, and we're going to put a little color in the shadows, so we'll sample from the sky. And that's adding a little bit there, and we can adjust the saturation and the hue of those shadows with the saturation of the photo. But the saturation of the photo we'll take down and play around with the saturation here on the split toning. And that just adds a little warmth to the interior. Helps it blend into the sky that we had replaced. And we'll use some sharpening here, mask the sharpening. Okay, so looking around some other options that we have here. Now some vignetting. We'll add a little bit of this to darken up the corners, which is nice. And the midpoint as well. And this this portion here of the door wall, we kind of want to darken that up. It's drawing a little too much attention. So we're just reducing the exposure here. And a little bit of contrast, a little bit more in the photo itself. And this tone curve, and what we're going to do here is on linear, just bring up this left-hand portion a bit, and that's just raising the shadows. With the sun, that's going to, well, it is coming in from the right side of the frame itself. We're going to add a little more as well. But with the sun coming in towards you, it's going to, in real life, it would affect some of the contrast. So we want to raise that up so the blacks aren't complete black. All right, now back into Photoshop. We have a flare here. We're going to add this flare, and it's reflected the wrong way. So I'm going to want to rotate this. So blend mode to screen. We'll bring up the levels, make this a little more intense. Okay, it's pretty good there. It's a little too big. First thing, I want to rotate this around, and we'll place it here. Control T, free transform. And we're just going to make this a bit tinier. I don't want too much of it in the photo, but I do want it there. And let's just move this. A little too big still. And that's good. So just a bit, just poke it in. And here, this is an effect I took. It's actually just a light in my living room that I had taken out of focus, of course. So we're going to add a little bit of this sun effect around where the sun is. So we'll take these blacks down. Okay, now we'll just move this to where we want. I don't want all of this. I'm going to mask out probably most of it. I just want a little bit of the light leak. Okay, now we'll start opacity at 0, and we just want to bring this up 10% or so, 8 to 10%. And the rest of this, I just want to mask this out because I only wanted it around where the sun is bleeding into the photo. So let's just paint around this. It's fine, you can't see much of it anyway. Very subtle, but it does add a little bit with those little rays there. We're going to duplicate this layer. We'll just add a couple more and make these a little different. So let's rotate these, and I'm going to take the opacity down a couple notches on this as well. So right there is probably good. And this is a very, very subtle enhancement to the photo, but I do like the effect it makes there. So on and off, down to 7% opacity. And that's good for that. So let's just finish this off. We'll flatten this for now. And I'm done with all of these layers. And the next thing I want to do here, I'm just creating, this is it's just a kind of a flare from the sun. This is not going to look great at first, but I'm just drawing around using the lasso tool. And we'll connect that. We'll use an adjustments and a curves adjustment. Let's just raise that there. And we're going to want to blur this. So Gaussian blur. And let's increase this radius to 20 or 30 or so. And again, that's very subtle, but it does add a little bit of light to that portion of the photo. All right, so we're done with that. And we'll flatten that. We'll take a look here. And one other crop as well. Let's just make this a bit wider of a crop. So we'll crop that there. And the bottom portion, we'll get rid of that. Pretty good. And a little bit off the left there, that little piece there that's near the open door. Okay, that's pretty good for a crop. I like that. Now we'll zoom in and take a look. There's some things that need to be touched up here. Some little blemishes here. There's a little reflection. We'll get rid of that. And let's use the patch tool here on the background layer. Content aware fill. Drag that over. Content aware for these pieces here. And there's a little bit on the seat we'll clean up. That's what we have so far. And we're almost done with this. We use a curves adjustment with a slight curves adjustment. It's bringing it down. Darken it just a bit. And the opacity, we can do 50 to 100%. It's a very, very small adjustment. And the last thing we're going to do here, we'll zoom in. And there seems to be a little mark on the side of the driver's seat here. Let's just patch these out. And that's just making some final cleanups. And that's really it. So that's a quick way to edit an interior photo, replacing the sky, a little bit of warmth, and of course cleaning up some of the blemishes that are in the interior. So thanks again. I'll see you again in the next video.